Among the top games for Sony's ill-fated PlayStation Vita system was a little overlooked gem named Gravity Rush. It was one of the top ambassadors for the system and quickly gained a following. It only took a year before a sequel was announced, but after one teaser, years went by without any news, and it seemed like a sequel might never happen. The game eventually resurfaced, and along the way switched from Sony's portable console to the PlayStation 4. So did the change for the newer hardware make the long wait for Gravity Rush 2 worth it? Is it the follow-up fans deserve? Gravity Rush 2 sees the first game's heroine, Kat, in a strange and unknown place after she, along with her friend Sid and fellow gravity shifter Raven, got sucked up in a gravity storm. Kat awakens on a mining flotilla together with Sid, and with no trace of Raven, the two have to work as miners in order to survive. The narrative starts off simple, but as soon as Jigapara Lao is introduced, it quickly starts focusing on themes such as classism and decadence of all things. They're not really the kind of themes you'd expect from the game, and while it's certainly interesting to see and draws obvious parallels from the current state of affairs in many South and Central American countries, it's also over as quickly as it started. Plot points get introduced and immediately resolved in the following mission. The events Gravity Rush 2 starts off with wrap up unexpectedly fast, and then a completely new story starts up, with the previous plot having almost no relevance to this one. This happens again at the end of the game, and it becomes quite clear what's going on. It seems the team knew a third installment was very unlikely, and so they wanted to wrap up the overarching story in this game. It explains the sudden shift in focus and why the third part of the game is messy. Characters are introduced into the plot and leave almost as fast as they enter. And plot points, both brand new and established since the beginning of the first installment, get solved in some of the most hastily done final chapters in the interactive medium. It beats having a game end like the first one, with a lot of open questions, and it does a well enough job of closing the series. But it's a shame the team couldn't finish the story better paced, or have the certainty of being able to finish off the narrative in the third installment. Even so, the first and second arcs are enjoyable enough. The characters are fun, and while the third part is a constant barrage of info, it at least gives the players closure. Gravity Rush 2 doesn't add as much as it refines. You are again in control of Kat, who can shift gravity at will and uses her powers to traverse the world, help its inhabitants, and engage in combat. The Nevi are back, as are a couple of new enemies. The first game's combat was clunky, and with the exception of the gravity kick, most offensive moves could have been done better. This time combat is a bit more polished. You will still do combos of kicks on the ground and do homing attacks in the air, but the ground combat now feels better and is easier than the first game. By far the biggest improvement is the stasis field ability, that now allows Kat to easily pick up items without her also being lifted off the ground this time. It makes fighting easier, more fluent, and gives players some variety. The same can't be said of the game's camera, which still manages to get stuck on a lot of geometry. It can be annoying, but is nothing game breaking. As the player progresses through the game, they will unlock two new styles, which are the game's biggest changes. The Lunar and Jupiter mode make Kat lighter and heavier respectively. Lunar mode allows Kat to jump to incredible heights or launch herself forward, at the cost of being hard to control while walking around. While Jupiter mode makes Kat run slower, but increases her speed greatly while skating and flying through the air. These two modes also change Kat's combat moves, with for instance the gravity kick now being able to be charged for a devastating ground smash, or objects thrown in stasis, creating an area of effect amongst other things. Lunar and Jupiter mode are fun additions to the core game, but are pretty much the only new additions. There are challenges that test your speed and combat prowess to get the fastest time, and side missions that tell their own story but are mainly there to give the player more gameplay, while also adding a bit more personality to the world. The amount of story and side missions is enough to keep the player busy for quite some time, but not all missions are a hit. The game features amongst others much hated stealth and tailing missions, instead of focusing on what makes the game good, which is kinda puzzling. But these aren't that frequent, so the game doesn't suffer too much for it. You can also go down to mine ore, which gives you precious gems to upgrade Cat, and minerals to craft talismans. Talismans give Cat buffs, such as more gravity time or stronger damage. These buffs can be combined and 3 of them can be equipped at once. While they certainly provide players with good bonuses, they're never necessary, so they can be ignored almost completely. Lastly, there are the online components. Players can hunt for treasure chests by hint photos provided by other players who found them, and then submit their own. Challenge mission results can also be sent to strangers or friends, and players can find and rate pictures others have taken in the world. By participating in these events, you obtain Dusty tokens. Collect enough tokens and players are rewarded with decoration to use in photos and other places, talismans, and skins. Sadly, this feature was taken offline as of the 18th of July 2018. And that also means players can unlock those extras, small though they may be. These online features were fun, but their removal doesn't affect the overall enjoyability. Gravity Rush 2 is more of the same but refined, and more Gravity Rush certainly is not a bad thing. The first title looked great on a handheld with its cel-shaded visuals, and Gravity Rush 2 steps it up quite a few notches. The cel shading looks gorgeous with the vibrant colors and creative designs. Jirga Paralao's Central American inspired setting mixes things up nicely from the previous game's main location. Instead of Hexaville's district being divided in a horizontal fashion, the new town plays with what makes Gravity Rush so much fun in a clever way, and that's falling. Traveling to different districts means Cat now has to fly up or fall down. And to tie it all together with the narrative themes of the game, the poorly treated lower classes are located in the lowest dark and murky looking skies, while the rich enjoy sunlight and aren't even able to see those that live below them. Character designs are top notch, and both from a visual standpoint as well as personality stick with you. Just like the first Gravity Rush, Cat will occasionally travel to locations that seem disconnected from the world she's in, and it's there where the environments go all out. These locations are such an amazing visual stimulation for players to travel through and will certainly leave an impact. And then there's the music. The soundtrack consists mostly of orchestral pieces dominated by the classic instruments you'd expect to hear from an orchestra, with a few small exceptions. Like the visuals, so is the music. Stellar musical pieces do well to elevate every aspect of the game. Tracks and cutscenes do an amazing job of enhancing the mood, while each district's tune clearly encapsulate what these areas are all about. Gravity Rush 2's presentation pulls everything together nicely, with it complementing both the narrative and the gameplay perfectly. Gravity shifting is still as fun as it first was, and while the sequel tweaks more than it adds, the complete package comes together nicely. The story starts off with some interesting ideas, but it wraps itself up rather quickly to focus on a more traditional story before shifting again in a rushed ending for the series. Combat is now way more enjoyable due to some refinement specifically with the stasis field, and the new modes allow for more options when fighting. The game has a lot to offer as a side dish, even if some of the missions are a miss. The online features are a neat little extra, and while it's too bad they were taken offline, it doesn't affect the overall experience. Graphically, the game takes the cel-shaded look from the first game and takes it to new heights. The same can be said of the music. While it could potentially be the last time we shift Gravity with the Gravity Queen, the team behind it made sure it's an adventure you won't soon forget. Alright, that's another review done. That's, I think, my 7th review. I started this one mid-December of last year, but I had to put it on the back burner because of a lot of stuff. And I'm glad it's finally finished. I originally started playing the game because not only did I like the first one a lot, but the online features were going to get cut closed on the 28th of February, and that's the original reason I started playing. But then they kind of, in a miracle situation, they kind of said, hey, let's extend the online service for a few months, which is a really cool thing. Way to go, Sony. But yeah, that's the reason I started playing the game, and I'm glad I did, because it's a great game. It's a great game. I haven't played the Raven episode DLC yet, but I'll get to that at one point, and I'll do a review of that as well. And if you liked it, let me know what you think. If you didn't, let me know what you think. I always appreciate feedback. I'm always looking to improve. And I hope to see you guys on the next review.